Hey guys, this is Bo, a 6-year-old wild horse from a band out west of Williams Lake. And I'm excited about this video is because it's rare that we get a horse that's older, that's this old that hasn't been had any training. So although he has been contaminated, he hasn't had any training. What I mean by contaminated is they run him in a corral and roped him, stretched him out and gilded him. So his uh, his first interaction with man probably wasn't that good in his eyes. But that being said, he is a pretty good dude. I like how this horse thinks. I expected him when I heard the story. I really expect him to be a lot wilder than this. That's why I'm always pretty careful about a horse's background story because it's easy to get the wrong perception. I always like to let the horse tell me the real story because they always will if time goes on long enough and I ask the right questions. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time building confidence or doing liberty work. I'm just going to go right to putting a rope on him. I'm just checking him out, seeing how wild he is because when I do rope him, I want to see what I got and how violent he's going to be. And as soon as I get the rope on him, I can see that he's not what I expected. So this is definitely not for beginner trainers or anybody who's not handy with a rope. If you're not good enough with a rope, you wouldn't want to do this with any horse. You're not confident about where you can catch him and that kind of deal. Or if you are good with a rope, you want to be careful because you don't want to just pull on this horse at the wrong time. Like it's very strategic when you apply pressure and when you release. And I know it's when I try to coach somebody through this that is handy, they see it. It looks easy, but it's not as easy as it looks. Number one, you need a really broke saddle horse. You need to make sure you can slide rope. You don't want to have rubber on your horn, and you don't want to just muscle them down, right? I do want to make that restraint pressure get a little bit stronger as time goes on, but in the beginning, I want it to be, I want it to have some give to it, but in the end I can win. So I don't got to win right now. I just got to in the end win and just set it up for my success. So this is where I pulled on him a couple times. Just once I seen that he wasn't that reactive to it, I'm trying to pull on him to get that rope to slide up his throat latch more. It just gives me a better opportunity to break his hips, which is the first lesson I'm going to be working on here. And it's just teaching him to yield to a restraint pressure while he's moving forward, and that pressure has to go through his hips and he needs to get a release when he breaks them hips around there. So I want it to be from, as much speed as I can get, but I start at a trot here to begin with. Then I can build speed as I need to. So when I start this lesson, I always want to think of my end game. And when I'm sending him around to the left, when he finally accepts the pull of this rope on his left side, he will quit going back to his right. You see how I turn him to the left, and when I let him go, he goes back to the right and continues around the pin. But when he accepts that pull, he will turn around to the left. Like he'll pause and then turn around to the left. They always do the same thing. And that's when I switch directions. I give him a break. So that was a pretty good one right there. So I give him a little bit of a break, like I slow down. I just give him a little bit of a pause. And I start him up again, just so he can see there was a little bit of a release there. It wasn't the same. And I'm really aware of that all the time with everything I'm doing with a horse, guys, is you want to have that about you where your energy and your pressure has breaks in it. Because I find a lot of times people just get in a hurry and they tick on high and their energy's at 11 all the time. They just tick high. So the horse, it'll make the horse tick on high. But if you can slow things down and slow them down more and then speed them up a little bit and speed them up higher and then slow it back down again, if you can control, your energy, and I find it starts with your emotions, having a clear understanding and a clear path of what you want to do next, it gives you the patience. And if you got good patience, I find my emotions are in check. But if, you may have heard that saying that patience and knowledge run out at the same time. And that's so true because when, if I don't know what to do, and back when I didn't know a lot of this stuff and I didn't know what to do, I just, for some reason, be in a hurry. Like I just didn't know what to do. I had no patience. I just felt like I needed to get it done so I could go on with something else. So I had a little speed to him there, and he came softer, and then I just pulled on him a little bit, and then he finally looked to the left right there. So that's going to be my end game. I pause for a bit there, and that's the end game to the left, and I'm going to send him back to the right. But again, while this video is playing, we got lots of time for me to talk about all the different scenarios that teaching them to yield to restraint pressure will deal with. Like, what kind of horses need this lesson of yield to restraint pressure? Any horse that's ever pulled back when tied, that's ever broke free from something, any horse that's bolted away from you on the ground, any horse that's on the ground or in saddle, any horse that's kind of bolted through you on the, under saddle, any horse that's kind of took off bucking and you can't pull them out of a buck, any horse that's heavy and you can't slow them down, you need more bit to control them, right? You need more bit pressure. Like if you don't have enough, feel like you got enough bit to slow him down, you got to put a bigger bit on him. Later on, I'm going to rope his feet. So any horse that is violent with his feet, that kicks, is bad with a farrier, tries to pull his feet away from you, won't let you touch his feet, basically won't let you do a lot of things. If there's any of these issues laying in there, lurking underneath the surface, these horses will stop doing a lot of things that they know how to do and block you from teaching them more lessons. I don't know how many problem horses I've had in my life that I just couldn't break through them. They just kept doing the same thing. Bolting would be one of them. And there's two ways to get through a bolting horse, is just turn him loose and let him run. And there's certain places out on the flat where I grew up that you could do that. I could just let them run. And then when they quit running, I pushed them some more and made them keep running. So that was the first form of success I ever had with a bolting horse, is don't try to stop him. Just make it your idea. Like he started to run, and then just make it like it's your idea. Oh, that's a great idea. Let's keep going. And he's going to slow down and want to stop. And I kept going and just keep going until he thinks twice about ever doing that again. Like, bolting's not the issue. But what he's end up doing is he'll bolt through control, but it's short-lived, right? He won't bolt and take off, but he'll just bolt. And it's, visualize it as a horse pulling back when tied, right? That's kind of the same thing. And I'll talk about that more later. So all I'm doing now is I got him. He was really quick on that other side. So all I'm doing now is I'm just slowly trying to work up to him, like I'm working on the approach. So I'm getting closer and closer to him, and then adding some pulls in there as well, like turning him back and forth, and just teach him to be pulled on from both sides a little bit. So I'm slowly halter breaking him, when he gives me an opportunity to send him, because he quits progressing in letting me approach him. Like I can get so close, and then he won't let me get that close anymore. So as soon as I lose ground in that area, I send him and pull him again. So he gives me an opportunity to do that. So I just play with this for a while, and so I can finally touch him and rub him down. But I'll talk more about horses that pull back when they're tied, because I've seen a lot of people that when they'd halter break horses, just run them down in a chute and run them in close to a chute or in a tight area, put a halter on them and just tie them up and leave them tied up, or tie them up and let them drag a lead shank around on the ground and things like that. And tying them up will teach them that they can't break free from the pressure, but they never learn how to yield to that pressure when going forward, right? Because he just hits it and pulls back, and he fights and hits it and pulls back and fights. He's tied so short, or even if he's tied with an inner tube, so there's some stretch there. He pulls back and fills that stretch and pulls forward, and he keeps trying to pull away, and that's exactly what he learns, is that he can't pull away. But it's very important that he learns that I can control his body when he has forward impulsion, and a lot of it, right? So that's why I want to get him at a walk, trot, and a lope going forward. And he'll tell you when he don't need that lesson, because when he's going forward, you reach up there and take the slack out of your line, and he just melts to it right away and comes around. So you don't ever have to go to that restraint pressure. I don't know how many problem horses I've stopped pulling back, that it hang back and pull or break free on the halter, just from this exercise. And it's not this particular exercise, it's the send while tied lesson that's in your guys' library. So that's why that lesson's in there, because imagine you got a horse that pulls away from you on the halter and you're in New York somewhere, there's no way I can help you it's a deal breaker with that horse. If I can't get you to stop that horse from pulling away from you, we can't go forward. You can't work him on the halter. You can't even go catch him and take him to the round pen, and in fear of he'll try to pull away from you and run out in the road, right? But if if I can get you to a point where you can do send while tied and get that respect from that restraint pressure, now we've got a solid foundation to build on. We've got a place that we can go forward on. And I don't know, like I said, there's just so many different scenarios where I've had some problem horses come into training, and it's in the two things I talk about: teaching them to handle fear and teaching them to yield to restraint pressure. It's those two things combined is what gets us over the hump, and quickly gets us over the hump with them problem horses. And now, instead of spending weeks and months to think that we got them trained enough or quiet enough that they won't spook and bolt anymore, and then take them out on the trail only to find out we don't, we can get through that in a few days and then spend the rest of the month checking them out, baiting them, try to get them to bolt and buck, right? That's where I feel comfortable with a horse is not when I'm tiptoeing around him, hoping the environment's perfect and I don't ride him on a stormy day and I don't ride him with a bunch of horses. It's the other way. I want to feel so confident within just 2 or 3 days of doing, those two lessons. And I'm not going to talk about the fear thing much on this video. This is more about, teaching them to yield to a restraint pull. But, teaching a horse how to handle fear is another topic that most people don't ever talk about. You never hear it. It's always about desensitizing, despooking, and teaching them how to teaching them to be confident. But it's completely backwards in my opinion, right? You take a bag and you bring that bag out and you wave it around at them. You might even move them with it a little bit, but that bag is no threat to them after a while. And pretty soon they're not afraid of that bag at all. But now you've used a prop. Now you took that bag out of the picture. Now you can't use that bag to absolutely put him in the fearful frame of mind. Where if I'm going to teach my horse to handle fear, I need him to be in the fearful state of mind that he's in when he panics and bolts and bucks, right? Because if I'm not teaching him in that emotion, I'm not doing any good, right? So this is where I should talk about, restraint from a leg. So I just roped his front leg right there just because he again, I took the rope off and he still wouldn't let me walk up to him again. He left right away. So it gives me an opportunity to start working on restraint, front and back. And I'm just going to do one front foot and one back foot, and I'll let Jordan do, his owner, I'll let Jordan do the other 2 feet. So, and when I do pull on him right here, he starts to get more aggressive and pulls harder. And when I shut him down from going, then he lays down. And the reason he lays down is because of his previous experience when he got roped and stretched out. They would have pulled on him really hard and he just would have dropped. I'm sure they didn't give him a chance. They just roped him and stretched him out. So, when I just pull on him easy like that, he was fighting a little bit, but then he felt that if he started going, he could stretch that rope and take me a little bit. And as soon as I seen him starting to take me, that's when I pulled on him a little harder. But you want to be careful that you're not pulling on him, at the wrong time and at the wrong angle, because you can hurt him. But it's and the rope I have is pretty stretchy, and like I said, I don't wrap very hard. I'm sliding rope, so if he does pull hard, it'll slide rope through my hands. And but I'm just teaching him how to handle that restraint pressure on a leg, because once you get him to learn to yield to restraint pressure on all 4 legs, now you can hobble him anytime you want. If you're loping out through the field and a piece of wire loops over his foot, he's going to slide to a stop and hold that foot, right? He's not going to panic. If he gets caught in a fence, you're not going to come back to a bloody mess with him fighting and thrashing, trying to cut his foot off to get out of the wire, right? When they've been taught to yield to a restraint pull around all 4 feet, if they get caught in wire, they stand there. You'll find them in the morning and usually not a mark on them. If you've done a good job of teaching them to yield to that leg, as soon as they feel they can't pull it, they don't even thrash. They don't even try it. So you get rid of farrier issues. They don't try to pull a foot away from a farrier and things like that. And I don't, I'm doing more and more nowadays because I'm not doing it myself. But when I was training all the horses myself, I knew the difference between a restraint pull and a communication pull myself on their feet. So was strong enough that I could kind of muscle them and restrain them and pull them and win just me picking up their feet. And then I'd be soft and gentle. So there's two ways to go about it. If I got communication pressure and he pulls, I'm going to motivate him not to pull by moving him and bending him and backing him up and those kind of things. But there is a time when if he pulls, I need to win as well. So I need to teach him how to handle and yield to restraint pressure as much as communication pressure. Because what happens if I just pick him up with light pressure, pick his feet up, and I'm light all the time, that's fine and dandy if I'm the only one that's ever going to pick up his feet. But what happens is a farrier comes along, picks up his feet, goes to working on him, gets a nail pounded into him and halfway out, and he goes to pull away, and that farrier is going to hold him because he can't pull away when he's got a nail half out, right? He's going to be having a nail jammed in him. So those kind of things is what you got to think about. That's why I teach him how to yield to restraint pressure. So with that happening, because I'm a farrier or was a farrier as well, so I know what it's like to